today comes from the Gospel of Matthew, the 20th verse, or 20th chapter. Jesus said to the disciples, "The kingdom of heaven is like a landowner who went out early in the morning to hire laborers for his vineyard. After agreeing with the laborers for the usual daily wage, he sent them into his vineyard. When he went out about 9 o'clock, he saw others standing idle in the marketplace, and he said to them, 'You also go into my vineyard, and I will pay you whatever is right.' So they went. When he went out again about noon, and about 3 o'clock he did the same. And about 5 o'clock he went out and found others standing around. He said to them, 'Why are you standing here idle all day?' They said to him, 'Because no one has hired us.' He said to them, 'You also go into the vineyard.' When evening came, the owner of the vineyard said to his manager, 'Call the laborers and give them their pay, beginning with the last and then going to the first.' When those hired about 5 o'clock came, each of them received the usual daily wage. Now when the first came, they thought they would receive more, but each of them also received the usual daily wage. And when they received it, they grumbled against the landowner, saying, 'These last worked only 1 hour, and you have made them equal to us, who have borne the burden of the day and the scorching heat.' But he replied to one of them, 'Friend, I am doing you no wrong. Did you not agree with me for the usual daily wage? Take what belongs to you and go. I chose to give to the last the same as I give to you. Am I not allowed to do what I choose with what belongs to me? Or are you envious because I am generous?' So the last will be first, and the first will be last." Lunchtime in high school is where I first began to realize my place in the world. If you got your lunch and you sat down at an empty table, who would you expect to come sit next to you? Or if you got your lunch and the tables were pretty full, who could you squeeze in next to and say, "Please let me in"? Where you sat and who you sat with said something about you and relationships, how others saw you, valued you. And in high school, this fitting in and being accepted and being seen by your peers as worth something, that was important. The group of boys I end up sitting with most of the time, because you get into your routine, they had decided one day we'd eat really, really fast, and then we'd go into the gym and play basketball. Since I was at their table, that's what I was invited to do. Now back in high school, this might shock some of you, I was a nerd. I was a nerd before there was a such thing, because we didn't have computers yet. Teachers weren't talking about STEM, science, technology, that kind of stuff. People like me were just odd misfits. So the group of us were going to the gym, and you know the routine, right? Two of the biggest boys would begin to pick their teams. Now when it comes to basketball, I only know 2 things. On defense, I know how to stand in one spot and wave my arms. On offense, I know how to stand in one spot, catch the ball if someone dared to throw it to me, and quickly pass it to someone else who knows what they're doing. So I would find myself running up and down the court, standing in my spot. I was picked last. People liked me. They ate lunch with me. They asked me to come play. They even tried to teach me how to do better. They assured me they were not laughing at me, they were laughing with me. But I was always picked last. But I was picked. I got to play. There were other boys who never did. Maybe the workers that were picked last in Jesus' parable realize just how lucky it is to be chosen at all. And that's why they respond with thanks, knowing that anything they received is by grace alone. The kingdom of heaven is like a landowner who went out early in the morning to hire laborers for his vineyard. He's picking his team. He starts with the best, the first round draft picks, those who have proven time and time again that they are hardworking, dependable, skilled, capable. He goes back out again at 9 and noon and 3 and finally at 5 o'clock. Quitting time is 6. And you see some people who says, "Why are you standing here idle all day?" Because no one has chosen us. No one has picked us. I've heard people try to blame the workers as if they must be lazy or they slept in that day or something like that. I was not a lazy kid. I was just a lousy basketball player. That's not the same thing. These are not lazy men, but they may be older, past their prime. Their backs aren't quite so strong anymore. Or they could even be too young, inexperienced, injured, unskilled. But they're not lazy. They want to work. They need to work. As a kid who often got picked last in basketball, I can tell you it's humbling. I was known for being unbeatable in math, but I was lousy at sports. And so it reminds you, you can't boast about the things that you're good at, because for everything that I was good at, there are plenty of other things I was not so good at. Those at 5 o'clock, can you imagine what it was like to finally be picked? It changes everything. If they don't get picked, they have to go home and say no job today, which probably means no food for tomorrow. And are we suppose it felt like if you're in that position where day after day after day you're being overlooked? And so time and time again you got to go home to the wife and children and say, we have no more food for tomorrow. We have no money to buy food. Well, like I said, at least I got to be invited and picked for the team. There were lots of boys that I'm sure would have liked to have played, but they never even got the chance to stand there and be last. If it's possible, maybe they were worse basketball players than I am, but I don't think so. I think most of them just lacked self-confidence, feared of being laughed at, or being smacked in the face with the ball. That happens, by the way. I wish people would have just announced to me first, Howard, I'm going to pass to you. Get ready. That would have really helped. There were men who didn't even get to stand there and wait all day. The lame, the blind, the deaf. They know the landowners are looking for good, strong, able-bodied workers, and that ain't them. There are people that are so last. I mean, they're beyond, they're not even mentioned in the text. They're that last. They know they're not good enough. They know they can't do the work. They know no one thinks very highly of them. Why come out and humiliate themselves? This text about the workers in the vineyard is so much more than just trying to see how blessed we are for being chosen. It also invites us to think about the truly last, least, and lost. Those so last that we don't even hear about them in the text. They were completely forgotten. To have empathy and compassion for them. Whether first or last or anything in between, we are here. We've been picked. We're talking about God's team in this world. You might sit there and think, I'm the worst disciple Jesus ever picked, but you got picked. There are millions too ashamed to even walk into this place. To even say, can I be part of the church? I know that sounds crazy, but I'm telling you, there's people out there who think they are so lost. Such sinners. So bad at playing this game, they don't even want to take the chance. The kingdom of heaven is like a place where God comes and he sits down beside the least and the last and the lost and says, I will never be ashamed of calling you my child. I will never be ashamed of calling you to play on my team. I didn't come to pick the best. St. Paul says in 1 Corinthians, he's writing to the church in Corinth. They all think they're all stars, by the way. St. Paul says, consider your own call, brothers and sisters. Not many of you were wise by human standards. Not many of you were powerful, not many of you were of noble birth, but God chose what is foolish in the world to shame the wise. God chose what is weak in the world to shame the strong. God chose what is low and despised in the world, things that are not, to reduce to nothing things that are, so that no one might boast in the presence of God. The kids in high school picked the best kids first because they want to win. And they thought they needed the best to win. God picks people like me. He wants the worst players on his team. So that when he shines through us, the world realizes it's not about how good we are. It's about how great he is. The kingdom of heaven is like a landowner who relentlessly goes out into the world calling to himself, yes, the strong, but also the weak. The talented, but also those who are not so talented. Everyone he finds. The lame, the blind, the drug addicts, the alcoholics, to bless them and to lift them up, to call him his sons and daughters, to call them blessed and loved and of equal value to everyone else. The kingdom of heaven is like a landowner who chooses the last to be first. It is like a landowner who is generous to the forgotten and the overlooked. The kingdom of heaven is like a landowner who has compassion on the losers of this world, which is good news, because we're all losers when it comes to the law. But thanks be to Jesus Christ, we are all winners in the eyes of God. Amen.